Hello and welcome to the Business of Data Festival 2022, the summer edition. My name is Catherine King and I'm the head of digital content and community here at Corinium. Goodness me, what a two-day spectacular we have in store for you. We will begin in the morning with our global sessions. We'll be taking a trip around the world, talking to some of the best leaders from the biggest brands about all the hot topics they wish to discuss with us. In the afternoon, we will then be heading out to a region near you. We will be doing these sessions live, so do come armed with your questions because our speakers will be more than happy to answer them as well. Now, make sure you take a moment to take a look around the platform. We have a wonderful resource area full of extra goodies, white papers, videos, and much more content. So please do check that out. You also have the functionality to chat with your fellow attendees, which I strongly encourage that you do. And of course, a huge big thank you to each of our partners for helping make this Business of Data Festival possible. But for now, let's dive straight into the first episode. We are going to be starting our Business of Data Festival by taking a deep dive into what it really takes to have your organization truly embrace and release the potential of data. And I'm joined by the lovely Gayan. Thank you for joining me in person.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
And how are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Very good. Well, before we dive into what it takes to release data into your organization, which sounds very, very exciting, let's take a step back. Talk to me about your role within the UN Development Programme. What does that mean for you?
Sure. I'll tell a little bit about what the UN Development Programme is and then go into my role. So when you talk about UN, there are a lot of agencies, right? UNICEF, WFP, and I work for the UN's development program, which is the largest agency on the ground. We are present in over 170 countries. And the organization now is going through a digital transformation process, and I'm in the chief digital office of that. And obviously data and digital are intertwined. So I lead the data portfolio of the digital transformation. And I always say my role is twofold. One is actually advising governments, advising member states on their data journey, on their data governance frameworks. On the other side, transforming the organization, the internal work that I do on data.
Goodness me, what a huge challenge there. Just a huge breadth of what you're doing, and then obviously the multifaceted nature to that as well. It's going to be very interesting to dive into this. Now, obviously, if we're talking about releasing data into its full potential, one of the easiest places to start, I guess, is defining that potential, right? Because it can go in so many directions, especially you mentioned there about digital transformation. That can mean lots of things to many organizations. So how did you go about defining the direction you want to head in?
A lot of PowerPoints, sticky notes. I'm joking, obviously. Setting the vision right and getting everyone buying into that vision is the main thing. And for us, we have a vision of being a data-driven organization because we are in the business of making decisions and let the governments, help the governments make their decisions as well. And for that, what we have done is set our priorities for the organization. That's about improving our internal processes, improving our decision making, and improving our transparency as well, because we are a public organization. And strategies are set for a certain time. Action plans are set for a certain time, but you want principles that reflects the value of your organization. And so it's one thing having a vision, but grounding that vision in a set of principles is what we have done in UNDP. And also what follows that is measurable action plans as well. So this is how we have set the transformation in UNDP when it comes to data.
Yeah, so you've got those different segments. You've got the North Star, the vision of where you're getting to, the kind of steps that need to take that. But then I love the fact that you've brought to the front already, and I didn't need to tease it out of you, that you've got this timing element as well, because I think many leaders struggle to pinpoint a time, and there's often pressure to say, how long is this going to take? 3 to 5 years. You might unearth a big problem that you didn't potentially, well, you may have known you had, but to the extent of it as well. So how do you go about defining a measurement like that?
In our strategy, we are working on 4 key areas, and each of those areas have very specific measurement elements as well. I'll talk about those 4 areas. One is obviously on people, and that is front and center of any transformation. That is about our people. Our strategy on people is about building capacity in the organization. At the same time, bringing in a lot of new data capacities into the organization as well. Before we started the journey, we did a measurement of how many data people do we have in the organization. Once again, that data people is a very broad term as well. But we sort of measured it at about 4% in the organization, and we want to push it to about 10% in 3 years. So we are bringing in new data talent into the organization, and that is not centrally. What I have seen in the past couple of years is country officers hiring data people into countries. Our regional centers hiring data people into their teams. And we have very specific teams working on specific issues like the nature, climate, and energy team, for example. They are bringing in data scientists. They are using new sources of data as well. So we are bringing in new talent to the organization, building capacity of existing people in the organization, also creating a network so they can learn from each other as well. So, and we have this series in UNDP called Data Thursdays. So every Thursday, we take an hour, we take a topic coming from the community and discuss about it. We bring experts on that particular topic. It has grown organically from about having 30 people to now about 1,200 people within a year. So it's a great way to create that buzz in the organization as well when we go through that transformation. The other pillar obviously is governance and stewardship of data. So to make decisions, we've created a data governance group in the organization, having the highest level of representation from country officers, from regional centers, from the internal bureaus that we have, and also what comes with it is a formal framework where we define the metadata for the organization, the taxonomies for the organization, who are the data stewards, who are the data owners, so the entire governance process. And we are a highly decentralized organization. I said we are present in over 170 countries. So if we've tried the compliance model earlier and failed miserably because we are so decentralized, that's never going to work. So our governance is more governed by exception, providing value to the organization. So we've created guidance on how your data should be managed. But if for some reason, and there are reasons to make exceptions, and if there is an exception, we've created a clear escalation path to that governance group to make that decision for them. And the third pillar is actually on technology. Earlier, our practice was if you have a data project or if you want to analyze something, you get a data scientist. He or she would do it in their computer, purchase some sort of a package to do that as well. 6 months down the line, you want to make a change, no one knows where the data is, no one knows where the consultant who you got is. So data initiatives happened in the past, but they happened in silos. Technology plays a strong part in bringing these silo initiatives together. So you don't have to focus on technology anymore. You can focus on the issue at hand, basically providing value to the organization with your data analytics. So we've unified the technology. Centrally, we are providing, you no longer have to store it on your laptop. It's all cloud-based. We have technology to store it. You no longer have to purchase new packages. You don't have to purchase visualization software. It's all embedded as well. The last one, I'll be quick on partnerships. You cannot do this alone. So you need partnerships. No player in this data has data to solve all the problems. So we do that through partnerships with many organizations, and they are in the development sector, also in the private sector.
I think what's so striking, Gayan, just hearing how you speak about this, is just the huge amount, and well, firstly, thank you for being so candid, but the huge amount of self-awareness, both from you were mentioning there about kind of the literacy side and the people side. knowing that you're at 4%, wanting to be at 10%, from understanding the journey you've been on with governance, that you know the nature of the beast that you have in front of you, and you're not going to try and push it into that route because you know it's not worked historically. And I think it's really interesting when we talk about releasing data to its full potential, is having that awareness of what that means for you in your position, in your organization, and the appetite for doing that as well. And the fact that, you know, as you mentioned there, the exception in governance, it's a case of you having to be a little bit flexible to this and not having hard rules. What would you say is your message for those watching at home today in the audience for applying this same nature of really truly understanding your position in an organization, to be thinking about the potential of data? How did you get to this point?
You're exactly right. That is the exact problem we are having as well. Everyone thinks data is someone else's responsibility. It is the IT's responsibility, maybe, or some management bureau's responsibility. But in reality, it is your responsibility. Everyone is a data person in this organization. Yes, I talked about pushing it to 10%, but ideally it should be 100%.
Yeah.
People ask me, Gayan, how big is your team? Well, my answer is 45,537 something, because everyone in the organization should be a data person, and it should be their responsibility as well. One of the biggest issues we are having is, imagine if you're in a country office somewhere and you're doing a project on gender equality, and you're entering data in your computer, but somewhere downstream someone is making decisions based on what you're just entering. And also what you're not realizing is, we are a public organization, and UNDP is fully transparent in that sense. We publish what we do publicly. So effectively, you're editing a public website when you enter information in your computer, because that information is going to go public, and donors are making decisions on how the funding should be allocated to. So one of the biggest challenges I have, and people who are watching this, is to know that you are a data person. Data is your responsibility, no one else's.
I think that's really, really very powerful. And I think, you know, especially, we can get into the topic of data quality, and I know there's so many people that will say, oh gosh, data quality, but it's such a big thing. And again, if we're talking about potential, I know naturally the conversation normally turns to AI, machine learning, and all the automation parts, which we're all moving slowly towards, some of us quicker than others. And it's a case of, you're exactly right about this. And obviously to the extent that you're talking in your organization, is that how that data is inputted and the quality of that data and the understanding behind it has such an implication down the line. And there'll be so many people watching and experiencing this, where perhaps there isn't this joined up nature of data entry. And then, you know, we've spoken about this extensively in our clubhouse rooms, in fact, about the cost of that, of nipping it in the bud, getting it entered right, versus if it's down the line and it's been used in some way, or it's now stored here and there. What are you mentioned this is a big barrier you're coming up against. What are you doing to try and break that barrier down practically?
That is what we are doing in the organization, is make it more real, the analysis more real time. So it's not like you enter something now and it is used 1 month after you've entered it. Making sure that you understand what you're entering right now is used as well, and in real time, sort of making the same dashboards that are available to decision makers available to you as well. So you're seeing what you're entering right now. You're seeing the value of data. And also there are enough incidents on the value of data privacy now as well. So to understand those at a minimum level, we've created obviously many training courses on this one, but as you can imagine, it is hard to run a transformation across the organization and bring everyone to that baseline level understanding of data as well. So this is through need, rather than, like you said earlier, we are not trying to create process here. We are trying to address practical use cases on the ground and use them to to bring value to the organization, yes, at the same time provide that structure as well through use cases instead of trying to implement hard processes in the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you mentioned about the training element as well, because we're seeing increasingly in the community that people are kind of doing this more iterative, like constantly training moment, rather than having that kind of once a year, everyone's got to get into a classroom and learn about data. And I often compare it, and I've compared it in the past, to riding a bike. If you take a moment and you sit in a classroom and talk through all the elements of how to ride a bike, okay, cool, yep, check, done that. Have I really learned how to ride a bike by doing that? If I revisit it in 6 months' time, am I going to be successful? And I think that's a really key, interesting area in this, is that it's got to be constant. You've got to have those touch points as well. And it roots back to my point earlier about you being such a fantastic person and organisation and team in knowing where you are on that journey as well. And I think that's quite powerful.
Absolutely. You took the analogy of riding a bicycle. Yes, you can only learn it by doing. At the same time, at a certain point, you should be enjoying it as well. So that is the maturity level we have to get to. Everyone in the field, when I say in the field, in the countries as well, not see this as a transformation coming from the headquarters. And that is the problem right now we are having as well. It's always about some transformation coming from the headquarters. It's about knowledge management, digital transformation, a new ERP system. So it is about actually, for me, it is about creating value at that ground level, understanding whatever we are doing right now adds value to the organization and also adds value to you personally as well. You enjoy what you're doing in the data initiatives that we do. What we are doing from the corporate level is providing you all the enablers, the 4 enablers I talked about. The partnerships, the technology, the process a little, the structure a little bit, not the process, the structure a little bit, and the trainings, as you mentioned, made available. But more importantly than trainings, in most of the trainings as well, we try to bring practical use cases from the ground. So people, it's not the training, how to train you on to do analytics. It is about how someone else has used analytics to tell a story in a country as well. So we look a lot into that storytelling factor as well, because it resonates with people.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that keyword of enable. And I think you always want to be, because these are busy people.
Yes.
These are busy, successful people doing what they do. And it's a case of enabling them to be even better at what they do. Make it easier, make it quicker, whatever the real kind of passion point is for them, whether it's a case of budgets, etc. And that requires a level of knowledge of what that meaningful part is to the business. Now, there was something you mentioned earlier about digital transformation is kind of constant. And the difficult thing is when it comes to digital transformation is you can't just press pause on business,
Yes.
on projects.
Yeah.
It's got to be ongoing. What have been the experiences that you've had with trying to pivot and change and transform whilst also maintaining that business functionality?
I think it goes back to that fundamental way of doing transformation, not through process, by transforming it to learning by doing, accepting that there will be few things that are failures as well on the ground, but take the transformation from the HQ to where the rubber hits the road, that is in the countries, and provide, so they are not seeing this as yet another thing that HQ wants us to do. It is something that we are doing because this helps us, and so we can be agile in the way we approach transformation as well, because not every country is the same as well, obviously, with the current situation in the world, and we have to be agile to those situations, those crises hits certain countries as well. So which is exactly why we are transforming from process driven to a more learning driven, learn by doing one. Because if it is process driven, imagine a country where you're struggling to even get power, and from HQ we are trying to say, look, the data should be entered in this way. So the transformation should resonate with people.
Absolutely, and it always comes back to that buy-in as well. And that if you are saying, here's the hard line of how it should be done, and it physically can't be done, then guess what? It's not going to get done either.
Exactly.
For sure. Now, I mentioned earlier about the kind of ambitions of digital transformation and data transformation as well, and often we talk about kind of automation and things. And I think one of the best things and things I love about this space is that it's never done. There's always something to be kind of working towards. So for you, that vision we spoke about right at the start, what is that vision for you? Where would you love to see your organization head towards?
That's a topic I can talk about for next 3 hours probably, but I'll talk about 3 areas probably. As UNDP, we produce a lot of knowledge, whether it be reports, blog posts, or thought pieces. And if you ask anyone, okay, how did you come up with that report? They would probably say it's based on my intuition, based on the research I've done. No one would say it's based on this data. And we want to transform the organization for people to say it is based on data. And also our ambition is to use more and more. When you talk about AI, machine learning, you talked about satellite imagery, you don't think about the UN, but in reality, UN actually uses AI, machine learning. I've seen projects where we use satellite imagery to track livestock in a country. I've seen projects where we use AI to do monitor deforestation in countries. So more and more, where in certain countries, primary data is very hard to get as well. We work with national statistical officers to get that. But I'm seeing a lot of projects using non-traditional data, as we call it. The social media data you can get working with satellite imagery, working with IoT sensors as well. So the ambition is to work with them more. But I talked about principles in the beginning. My ambition and organization's ambition, my personal ambition, is also making this open and transparent. And imagine, even right now, my ability to get a loan for my dream home is based on an algorithm, or based on my financial situation, and it's based on an algorithm. It's my wife's ability to get a loan for her small business is based on some algorithm and financial data that she has. I sure want those algorithms and that data to be open and transparent. Now, as UNDP, we are making decisions. Now, that's just for me, right? As UNDP, we are making decisions in countries which affects millions and probably generations to come as well through policy, making policy changes. So you sure want those policy changes to be based on data, but that data and the algorithms to be transparent and open.
Yeah.
That is our ambition.
For sure. No, and it's a fantastic ambition to have. Well, Gayan, it's been a pleasure learning more about you and the organisation and how to release data to its full potential. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.